Yeah. Should we start? I have to see this.
Well, our next topic, agenda item is a discussion presentation by Webster Green Space Advocates on the potential November 2021 referendum.
We've kind of started to realize that was a bit ambitious, so we've now gone for 21/22. So we'll explain everything. Should I just put it here? Yeah. I do have a PowerPoint, but I don't know, it would probably take too long to hook up to
Is
the
it?
projector.
I have a flash drive if you like.
Do you want to, yeah, if we could do that. I mean, it's only a few slides. If I just give this to you and just start babbling in the meantime here. It's just this little here. Thank you. All right.
Well, if we're setting that up, well, if you don't mind me just kind of chiming in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yes, they know.
What's that? 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we met over at the rec center with Chris Bilo, the Parks and Rec Commissioner, and myself. And then I somewhat see Diana as the leader of the Webster Green Space Advocates Ad Hoc Committee. You know why I do.
I don't feel like it.
Well, you know why I do. Until you hand the baton to somebody, you're the one that nudged me back in 19, and then when I got into office, you got in front of me and said, let's talk about this. So you were the, the squeaky wheel, and I mean that as a compliment. And then you, as meetings went on, you brought in Gail Bender, and then you brought in Mary Cochran. So as the flock grew, you were the common denominator, so you're the leader. And the third party at this meeting 2 weeks ago was the Friends of Webster Trails, which right now, Anna, you are the president. And it was somewhat, I had asked for this meeting because I was going along thinking, well, Friends of Webster Trails are doing their thing, and they're a very established green space trail advocacy group, and been wonderful for the town. And here's Diana and her group doing their thing, and I'm like,
We should have hooked up a long time ago.
And it was an interesting meeting, but I feel as if since then,
Yeah.
and maybe this segues, are they ready?
It does. It segues perfectly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to do
Did I buy some time for you?
Oh, is that where it?
Yeah.
No, you know what? We'll just. This is more snazzy than I anticipated. We'll do the PowerPoint and then we can do the reveal.
Okay.
Okay. All right. It's like
So,
we were fortunate. The projection on it.
I have no idea.
okay, so while Karen is setting that up, so I feel pretty good that we're not going to in the future have Friends of Webster Trails going left and the
Yes.
Green Space Committee going right.
And we've also been in touch with, you were mentioning that color Webster Green. So, it was just a little group that they were kind of on Facebook saying that they had started something. And I've been in touch with them, just kind of like what you're saying, trying to just conglomerate everything so that, whatever green space groups there may or may not be, everybody's kind of going in the same direction or is at least on the same page.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just makes sense. So as you can see from the date underneath here, I was really keen on 2021. As I think everybody on the board probably knows by now, I'm super keen on green space, and I don't always have an accurate sense of how much time things are gonna take. So I was just kind of, really ambitious with this sort of schedule. But after consideration, after talking to you, Tom, after talking to you, Anna, and Peter as well, we, I think, collectively have decided that while we are going to start working on this now in earnest, we probably won't be looking to bid for referendum until 2022. Because there are so many properties on the list, while we're not by any means anticipating acquiring them all, the idea is to cast the net wide and just initially just put a shot across the bow for landowner interest and see what's happening. And that's going to take some time, and then depending on the interest we do get, it's obviously going to take some time to build relationships, and I mean, I'm sure we can all think of immediately a few landowners who, it's going to be negotiation, and if it leads anywhere, then that'll be a miracle. But having said that, I'm pretty excited to be working with Friends of Webster Trails. Their priorities overlap really well with what we were sort of looking to achieve with this open space referendum, which is the preservation of the beautiful natural spaces in Webster that can be used for, to the point of previous pair that were here, the well-being of the public. I think, one of the things that really struck me during the pandemic was how packed Whiting Road always was. It just goes to show how much people really do value our existing trail system. And I know, John, you said in a previous meeting, how much green space Webster already does have. That is true, but the case is that, there are a lot of areas in Webster which are underserved still, and just speaking with my friends on the east side of Webster, they would love to be able to have more on their doorstep without having to get in a car and drive 5 million miles. My husband, who likes to bike and hike, Kodiak Trail's great, he says, it doesn't really lead to anything. You don't really have trails off of it, so there is room for improvement. And I think, in addition, it's a great way of ensuring that these beautiful spaces, stay that way. I know you guys have all heard me talk about how just in my lifetime, I feel like Webster has lost a lot of what made it unique, what made it beautiful, what made it itself. And, I've accepted that you can't just go in and kind of like communistically overlay stuff onto the land and say, you can't sell this, it's permanent green space. The only way to really protect that is to make sure that you're compensating the landowners. So I do think, there's a lot of momentum behind this right now. I think, we can capitalize upon, how fed up people are feeling with overdevelopment. You can use that energy towards this, and we can get something really great out of it. So there's my spiel. Could you put some?
Yeah, I just did.
Did you? Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, my animations aren't working, but that's fine. So yeah, so just that's who we are, the Webster Open Space Committee. My little group got a lot bigger. Hooked up with Larry Peckham, who's the former chair of the previous Open Space Committee, who remembers very fondly. He's in Florida right now, so sadly can't be with us. But he then put me in touch with John Behan, and basically Larry very generously got John Behan to do the proposal, which we all saw back in the spring. And Behan as well is kind of unofficially sort of acting as an expert from the sidelines a little bit too, which is really nice. So, even though we're not paying him. So, we also have, obviously, myself, Peter, Gail, who can't be with us tonight, sadly. I think she had an emergency, unexpected vet visit, which, sad. But, and then, then just a wider group of people from the community, which we've, in addition to obviously wanting to get the green space groups sort of coordinated, we've got representation from a lot of the different parts of Webster that, shall we say, have undergone development pressure and haven't been necessarily happy about it. So, recognize the value of preserving green space while it's there to preserve. So yeah, so basically our goal is to pursue the properties in the plan that we can put together and see if we can't get it to a referendum next year.
So I'm Anna Taylor, and as Tom mentioned, I'm the president of Friends of Webster Trails. And we were linked up with Diana and her group. Can you go up to the microphone, please? Oh, sure. I usually have a voice that carries, so not a problem. We were connected with Diana and her group through Tom, and it was a good heads up. And I think most everyone on the board knows of our group, but we're a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and we serve as the volunteer arm for the Parks and Rec Department. And we were established in Webster in 1997. So our mission, which aligns with the Open Space Committee's mission, is to advocate for the preservation of natural character of Webster, and we do that through sensible management, education, and low-impact access. We advise the Parks and Rec Department, and our group assists by planning, building, maintaining, and promoting the trails. So as a resource for Diana's group, our board, our members, and our trail stewards are really knowledgeable about the open spaces that we have in Webster, and the contiguous properties and the adjacent properties that are surrounding those open spaces. So it was great to have the opportunity to give some feedback on Diana's list and the Open Space Committee's list.
So, this is kind of just, I won't spend too long on this slide because I kind of already told you guys all about this. But, you know, the tiered system that we have, which I'll show you when we get to the map, isn't necessarily something that we're going to sort of hold to. It just indicates kind of certain properties which have a lot of characteristics that make them especially valuable, particularly for the acquisition of, you know, the preservation of natural beauty. So for something that's like wooded next to, you know, Whiting Road and previously part of the tax abatement scheme, it's kind of like low-hanging fruit. So properties like that are really what we're looking at as priority properties. There are obviously a lot of other properties all throughout Webster, which, you know, depending on what criteria they meet in our consideration, this is going to be an ongoing discussion, you know, with Tom and the team. But, you know, there are things that maybe we can sort of consider in addition to the priority list. I want to emphasize that we're not anticipating getting everything on the list, okay? This is you know, that's crazy. That's too much money anyway. But I do think that there is room for a modest, an acquisition modest set of properties, and I think we can do something really great with that. So you can see, you know, we're leaving plenty left for development, even if we got everything, which we're not going to do. And these numbers aren't like that accurate, only because the numbers are what BCAN gave us, and they are assessed value but plus 20% soft cost. So maybe we're getting close to accurate. I guess if you, whatever it was that you said, Tom, that 72% actualization or something. Equalization. Okay. And that's another thing that we have to figure out. You know, certain properties might benefit from these, not assessed, but what's the word for it? Appraised. Thank you. So this is all, you know, going to be part of the dialogue. But anyway, okay.
All right. So this month, as Diana noted, we took the Open Space Committee's larger list, and Friends of Webster Trails just quickly reviewed the list and just given our board members knowledge of the properties. We evaluated the list as to identify properties that we thought would be of value for open space in Webster. The criteria that we used to evaluate the property list were, they were adjacent to currently preserved land, so we could connect trails and open spaces. They were wooded, important watershed land, land, as Diana noted, that was located in underserved areas of Webster, so that if you did have to get in your car and drive to, you know, across town to trails, was there an opportunity in an area of town that didn't have that currently, and land that was valuable for trails, that the topography, the nature of the land lended itself to trails, and it had a connection to neighborhoods. So that established the pared down list. Yeah.
And, next slide. I'm gonna actually show you the paper map, because I don't know, I'll try to explain it on here, but these properties are, all of these are like hatched, okay? These are the ones, and I think this one as well, these are the ones that Webster Trails sort of looked at our list and said, you know, these are really valuable for, you know, the expansion of the current trail system. It overlaps with our priority as well because, you know, really handily, a lot of them are wooded, are near parks, obviously, and some of them even were part of the former tax abatement scheme. And, you know, some of the interesting, you know, things that we could probably discuss, they don't always necessarily need the entirety of the property either. You know, so something like the lumberyard, you know, this front part could still be developed. You could still get a profit on that, and, you know, trails could take the back, you know, sort of wetlandy, weird area that's got a lot of trees on it because it hooks right up to the Hojek. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to consider. But that's basically where we're at, and we're just really, you know, looking forward to getting started and just kind of reaching out. We've already started public outreach. So far the response has been really positive. You know, every day there's more survey respondents, more petition respondents. You could argue that there's a bit of selection bias in the sense that the people that are going to be responding to the survey, it's probably people that really want this. You know, that's the old sort of problem with statistics. But having said that, it is really positive, the feedback that we're getting from the public. And I think you guys all know that you know, the preservation, the acquisition of green space, doing something to stop Webster from, you know, the rapidity of, you know, it's not necessarily to prevent development, but it kind of offsets it, if that makes sense. So I think there is this public feeling right now that, you know, that shouldn't be ignored. And at the very least, you know, we should try. And at least give the public an opportunity to vote on the issue eventually. So, yeah. I think, no, we don't have to. I don't even think we can. I mean, I kind of people want to see the survey and stuff, but I can go back to it. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, never mind. That's why I didn't want to do that. I didn't really that was going to happen. No, you're fine.
You know, we're trying to keep a tight time in this.
Yes, sorry.
But you know what? No. I was going to give an extra couple of minutes because I was living over at the meeting a few weeks ago with the crew here, so that's my olive branch. But look, like I said earlier, I'm just very happy that Friends of Webster Trails and the Green Space Advocacy Group, ad hoc committee, whatever, they're working together, and Chris and I and whoever else in the town, we're all working together. There's some, I mean, just the other day's meeting that unfortunately Hannah and Diana weren't at, that Hal, is Hal still here?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
there.
Hal was there, Gail was there, and we identified, or you guys had identified, 2 parcels that aggregate up to almost 11 acres that are 2 different derivations of donation of the land to the town. And
That's a good word, I like that.
well, and John, for you non-accountants, donation costs the town, well, that won't cost us a penny. I guess except for in lost tax revenue because we own it and whatever it's assessed for and taxes on it. So there's so many ways to achieve the end goal. And I think that everybody on this board right here, you know, nobody, and I don't know, I've never met anybody in the town of Webster that's like, yeah, let's get this town and community to 70,000 citizens.
Yeah.
We really need to blow the doors up. Nobody wants to do that. It's just everybody's got a different means to get to that end goal. I'm just glad that we've got the government, Friends of Webster Trails, the advocacy group, working on the same page. And as I said to you before, talk is cheap. Let's see the actions, and I mean our actions, Chris and me, and Charlie, and what we're doing with you guys as we, in earnest, as you said, move toward November of 2022. And I think a lot can be achieved of land donation, or land accumulation, whether it's donation or whatever, between now and then.
Yeah, and I think that, obviously donations aren't going to happen with all of the properties. It would be great, if some of them were. I guess what I just want us to sort of bear in mind, I guess, would just be that the donation route is something that, kind of can go on a rolling basis tangentially to, the sort of reaching out to the property owners, getting
Absolutely.
memorandums of understanding, that type of thing. Yeah.
Well, unlike when the referendum was done 18, 16 years ago, I know there was one initially in 03, it didn't pass, and then 05. Good news, bad news is the same thing. There are less acreage parcels of open space to consider today versus 2003. That creates a very finite group of people that we need to contact to see what are their intentions. And as I've said, I'm interested in that, reach out to those people to see what their intentions are.
Yeah, and
Because
just,
as we said, some of them are asking for $1 billion an acre, and that's their prerogative. They're private landowners, they can ask that. They'll be asking for it from now until the end of time. But for somebody who's maybe more reasonable and more impassioned to have the land tied to green space, well, then we should be talking to them.
yeah, absolutely, and I just would just make one more point, that, part of the reason that, initially I was really shooting for wanting to get it done so quickly, is because of the rate of development. Not necessarily saying that all development is a bad thing, but, when it's happening in spaces that we would otherwise like to preserve, so that's gone. There might be even one more that just since, this was put together at the end of 2020, and so it's happening really, really fast. So I think that that's just something that we need to bear in mind. Hopefully we don't lose too many more of these before we're in a
Well, look at
position
the
to
glass
acquire.
half full. It's happening a lot slower than in the 90s and the 2000s.
I like the silver lining, that's usually
That's
something
a
I would
fact.
say.
That is
Okay,
not,
all right,
that's a
okay.
fact, so, but thanks, gang.
Yeah, thank
Did you have any
you.
discussions with the Village of Webster regarding the Wellfield property? 'Cause I know they have approximately 40 some odd acres over there. And currently, on the south portion, there's tremendous trails over there already.
Yeah.
They're being used.
Really?
It's incredible, yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
just throwing that
Oh,
out
no,
there
no,
to see
that's
if you
definitely
had
on the
discussions.
list, like, that's definitely a big old question mark,
Right.
on our list.
It's not,
Yeah,
it's
they
not
got-
well marked on the current map. I mean, you know the property well, so
Sure.
do I, right?
Yeah.
But it's not well marked, but it's absolutely on the table.
Right.
But the challenge, as you're aware, is there's lots of little tiny parcels.
Yeah,
And
in the one section, but
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
talking about the southern portion of that.
yeah, the larger section where the water
Yes.
towers, yeah, that actually is
Right.
marked on the map right now.
Oh, good.
But
Thank you.
there's just a lot of unpacking to do with that, yeah.
Sure.
That particular parcel.